Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Olainfarm Investor Conference webinar about financial results and company's activities in the third quarter 2018. Today we are hosted by the advisor to the board of Olainfarm, Salvis Lapins. As always, we will start with the company's presentation, after which Mr. Lapins will provide answers to your questions. Therefore, please don't hesitate and type them in the questions box on the right side of your screen. Salvi, the floor is all yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, time flies. It seems quite recently we had a webinar on the first half of this year. Now it's early December, and as a good old tradition, I don't remember how many years we do this. Shortly after the publication, here we are with the review of our performance during the last quarter and 9 months. So nice to see quite many of you online. Well, of course, very nice to see the people that we have met during the roadshow as well. So it's nice to see that you remain loyal and interested in Olainfarm. But let's now start with the presentation. So as usual, we start with the third quarter results. Again, you see in terms of sales, this is quite a good third quarter. It's slightly, very slightly worse than the third quarter of last year. We just lacked some like 4,000 euros to repeat our sales result of last third quarter. In total, we sold 27.6 million euros worth of products. Pharmacies added 5.6 million to that. Silvanol added 1.2 million, and Tonus and Elast Medical, its Russian sales house, added a total of 2.2 million euros to the sales. If you look at the profits, also some good news here. According to unaudited data, we made a net profit of 1.7 million euros, which is a very nice increase if you compare it to last year. It's still very far from any best quarters of ours, but still there's a good development compared to Q3 of last year. A small typing mistake here. Well, a couple of reasons. Last year, this time, we wrote off a few assets of ours, not least our investments in Belarus and our investments in healthcare companies. This year we still have some smaller asset write-offs, but therefore about 1.1 million less. However, this year we have forex losses for about 0.2 million, 200,000 euros bigger than we had at Q3 last year. So, but lesser, smaller write-offs, of course, offset that, and also gross profit is a little nicer, although the sales are comparable. So meaning that the margins are better, meaning that the sales mix is more favorable. In fact, in Q3, although our total sales were about the same, the share of chemical products, which normally would have a smaller margin, was quite small. So that also added to better gross margins. Now, if you look at EBITDA and EBITDA margins, some improvement here as well. In 12 trailing months, our EBITDA is back to 17.8 million euros. Margins has increased back to 15%. Again, last year's third quarter has now left the trailing 12-month period with 1.1 million asset write-offs. So that also helped to improve the trailing 12-month indicators for EBITDA. Of course, forex loss, of course, is not included in this EBITDA calculation. If you look at sales by products, if you compare it to the last quarter of this year, Nerimidine and Norfen have switched positions. Now Norfen is best selling and Nerimidine is number 2. Para-aminosilicic acid, which seemed to be forgotten this year, is now back on our pie chart, and similarly is Remantadine. As flu season approaches, purchases of that product are now also increasing. And in the third quarter, separately, these two products replaced memantine and meldonium, which of course do not have that seasonality factor as clear as for instance remontanide does. As far as all the other products are concerned, they are quite stable compared to the second quarter of the year. Now, if you look at the countries, compared to second quarter, Russia's lead is a little greater than it was. As those of you who follow our monthly reports have noticed that in Q3, Russia in general was performing a little better than it did earlier in the year. Belarus lost 2 percentage points, and Ukraine lost 4 percentage points compared to the second quarter of the year. And again, because of better shipments of para-aminosalicylate acid, the anti-tuberculosis products to the WHO, we have the Netherlands back with 2% share in total sales in third quarter alone. Now, compared to the second quarter, in this pie chart, we see Netherlands and Kyrgyzstan, but no longer we have Uzbekistan and Lithuania among our top 10 countries. Now, if you look at 9 months in general, we made a little less sales than 9 months last year, about a little less than 1%. And again, para-aminosalicylate acid success last year is pretty much behind that. We will see that in a little greater detail when we talk about products. So we didn't manage to repeat the great performance of that product as we did last year. From our daughter companies, pharmacies added 17.3 million to our sales. Sylvanos added 4.1, and elastic products added 7.1 million euros. Profits also recovered a bit compared to 9 months of last year. Preliminary, we according to unaudited data for 9 months, our net profit is at 7.5 million euros, which is an increase by 13%. Now, as you remember, the profit guidance for this year is 11.5%, and the board believes that this is still achievable, meaning we are lacking about 4 million euros in net profits for the last quarter. But the numbers that we already published for October, you remember, it's very good sales of 13 roughly million euros. Our first sales that we're starting to see from our daughter companies for November are also showing some impressive growth. So, should we be performing good on sales in the remaining 2 months, meaning we have all the chances to attain 11.5 million euros in net profits. So we pretty much stand behind the guidance so far. As far as profit improvement in 9 months on 9 months is concerned, same reasons. We have a better sales mix, we have less asset write-offs, and those, of course, are contributing. Also, we should certainly point out that changes to Latvian tax legislation have also added to our net profit in this period. So where is the growth coming from? In this case, where is the change coming from? Because we're not growing, unfortunately. So if you look at top 15 products, we see 9 of them are growing. And in terms of in monetary terms, the biggest contribution was compared to the similar period of last year was made by Nofen, which added 800,000, and Etitzin added 500,000 to our sales these 9 months. In relative terms, it's R minus quinacridinol, one of our chemical products that, of course, grew by 215%. But again, the basis is quite small. But memantine also, which didn't have that small base, added 64% to our growth. And of course, here you can quite clearly see that in terms of products, the biggest loss is from less sales of anti-tuberculosis product, para-aminosalicylate acid. We sold it for 3.3 million euros less these 9 months than we did last year. And also Adaptol, as it was transferred for tougher regulated neurological product in Russia, has lost some sales in these 9 months, or in other words, has lost about 0.7 million euros. So two big products in 9 months, and are selling for 4 million euros less. Nevertheless, all the other products combined have managed to mitigate this loss. And PASA in terms of in relative terms have also fallen very significantly by 84%. Since this was one of our good products for last year, this loss, of course, is noticed and appeared as some sales, minor though, but still some sales reduction. As far as countries are concerned, 11 out of 15 top countries are growing, and you see the biggest, of course, loss is coming from the Netherlands, which is again the same story of antituberculosis product. And of course, Russia also subtracted about 2 million from our sales. We managed to compensate that with very good performance in both Belarus and Latvia. They both combined added more than 7 million to our sales. In relative terms, of course, smaller countries in terms of sales like Japan and Tajikistan added quite nicely. Some significant reduction in Italy also, but in relative terms. But again, it has a small base and not that much of an influence on our overall figures. So that was very briefly about the performance of ours during this period, and now it's time for the traditional poll question of ours that we normally ask at this stage, and this is how do you view our performance in this period? Is it worse than expected? Is it just as expected, or maybe you think it's even better than expected? So I'll give you a little bit of time for that. And while you do your voting, when we went on a webinar last month, in several meetings, when we talked about the webinars, people said that it would be nice that if all the attendees could see the polling results. So I was told that this time it will be possible. I'm not sure if it really is, but I hope it works nice. So you can not only vote, but you can see what the other participants think of, in this case, of our performance in third quarter, 9 months. Yeah, so I believe, you can see that. So I can see that majority of you, about 70%, think that third quarter was went just as you expected. And the ones that were positively surprised are currently 14%, and 14% say that they're negatively surprised. So, but all good that we met the expectations. Let's hope that for the last quarter we'll manage to exceed the expectations of most of you. I think that's it. Thanks for voting. And since our last webinar, there have been some quite important things that have been happening that I believe need some attention. So what has happened since we last met about 2 months ago is, as promised, we went on the Baltic Sea Roadshow, and that one's completed. We visited 6 countries and 7 cities in total of about 2 weeks. We had about 30 or more than 30 meetings. In fact, since we had the big retail meeting in Tallinn, I believe the number of contacts we had is probably somewhere in the area of 50. The interest was great, and in some cases we had as many as 7 meetings per day, which was quite tiring. But I must say that my feeling is that the overall perception, overall interest in the company was great, and I felt that many of the investors very, very highly appreciated in these times that are not that easy for the company. That we were ready to take an effort and travel to many people and see them and talk to them and explain to them what's happening and what the plans are. So hence the next question about the roadshow. I can see from the participants that many of you we've met during the webinar, but at the moment I cannot see all of you who are attending. So the question is, did you meet us or did we meet you during our roadshow? And basically the sub question is how did you if you met you, what's your assessment, what's your evaluation of our performance? So did you meet us and you think the presentation was good, or did you meet us but the presentation wasn't as convincing? Maybe you did not meet us and didn't really intend to, or maybe you wanted to meet us, but something went wrong in communication and we couldn't put you in a schedule, or for some other reason we couldn't. So yeah, please take a bit of time, and hope this one will also be able to see the answers to. I'm not sure how this works. Do you vote first and then you see results, or you can see the results as you're voting? Yeah, because yeah, here we go. Oh, thank you. It was yeah, very. From what I see, it's about 45% we met you, and you think the presentation was good. Unfortunately, some 36% wanted to meet us, but wasn't possible this time. So obviously, we need to do our planning homework better next year. Although even with those meetings that did not happen, as I said, we had quite a busy schedules in a few cities. But yeah, once we're taking that effort, I think we probably have to do a better job in meeting as many people as possible. So yeah, thanks for voting. And yeah, let us move to well, basically, I guess the last slide today. It's an EGM on November 22nd. Many of you also during the roadshow were asking the questions about what the risks are and how we feel. Do we feel the companies in terms of management now stable, and can we focus on development? And yeah, indeed, we believe that we are stable, and the EGM pretty much confirmed that. As you know, it was initially convened by two minority shareholders, and basically asking to change the council and change the articles. Change the articles whereby the council would be given huge authority. In short, things like transactions exceeding 100,000 euros would need to be approved by the council. And let us remind you that we are 130 million euro company in terms of sales. So that de facto would mean transfer of executive power to the council. And all of the proposed decisions were rejected by basically a landslide majority. 76% of shareholders present rejected all the agenda items. So indeed, in terms of managing the company, that is yet another confirmation that it's stable at the moment, and it's managed and can focus on developments of which I spoke a little bit last time. So yeah, I would regard this as a good news that there's been enough turbulence for the company over the last year, and yeah, let's hope that now it's pretty much back on a path of growth and development. So and hence the last polling question. It's like I said, it's been a turbulent year with ups and downs, and very very simple question. I hope this is not interpreted as trying to influence the market. But still, with everything that's been happening with the company, what's your current feeling regarding our shares? I mean, what's your mood? Are you bearish or are you bullish? And well, yeah, see what you think. But really, I mean, the markets overall are quite turbulent these days, and I believe Wall Street's down another 1.5 or something percent today, and more than 3% a few days ago. So the markets are not nice, but let's focus on Olainfarm in this case. What do you think? What's your feeling? How does it look for you? Let's yeah, good. Well, bullish mood slightly dominates. Yeah, and it's a green bar, which it should be. Yeah, however, yeah, it's not that convincing, but we're working on it, and like I said, like I said in the previous webinars, we have a couple of development ideas, and yeah, if we work on them and fix them and get them on track and working, that there might be reasons indeed to be quite bullish. Yeah, that's really about it. For this presentation. So it's, I believe, Q&A time. From what I can see in my little window here, there are not questions here yet, although I might be mistaken, and Eva certainly knows best. Eva?
Thank you, Salvi. Not many. We have one at this point. So let's start with it. What are the potential next steps by the two sisters in case they continue to pursue some control in the company?
Well, that's I'm really not the right person to ask that. Don't really know. I mean, it, it's really up to them. I mean, currently what they do have is each of them has a bit more than 7%. What they can certainly do is keep convening EGMs from time to time and put their agenda on voting and probably get similar results as they get on November 22. I believe there's not much fun in that for neither of parties. That's something they could technically surely do, but what else they can do or going to do is I'm certainly not the right person to ask that question. Yeah.
Thank you. Reasons behind splendid sales in October.
Well, I don't really have that chart in front of me, but since I was gathering this information, as well as good as I remember, Russia was performing really nice, and that pretty much was the main driver. I believe Sylvanos also added some few hundred thousands more than they normally did. But and again, I don't have that table in front of me. And if I go now into that table in computer, then the whole presentation might be somewhat ruined. Yeah, I believe that those are the two main factors. From what I already know, we just got some first reports with regard to November that our daughter companies are, in particular, Tono Celest just reported they in this month alone made sales exceeding 1 million euros, which is very impressive. Yeah, there are reasons to believe that November might look quite well. And yeah, my colleagues are here helping now. In yeah, if you look at yeah. Yeah, Belarus had quite good sales, quite good increases, but it's 1.5 million in October. This is, I must say, I mean, Belarus has grown so nicely that 1.5 million per month is no longer a huge number for them. It's probably the thing that last October they were not performing as nicely. Same thing with Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan has been not performing well. If you go in a couple of slides back with the Kazakhstan's chart, you remember they were actually falling 9 months on 9 months. So obviously there were some shortages in this distribution system. So October to Kazakhstan we shipped more than 500,000 euros. So that added also nicely. Uzbekistan also wasn't performing all that nice previous month, and there was no sales to Uzbekistan in October of last year. This year, Uzbekistan had the shipments of 400,000. Spain, similar situation, had the shipments of 270,000. Yeah, so, but in nominal, in monetary terms, I believe Russia's 3.9 million euros added the most of it. So yeah, that's for October.
Thank you, Salvi. Wonderful teamwork you have there.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
The
That's
next
only
question.
webinar.
Yes, good control over other operating expenses in Q3 as percentages of sales. Will that carry over to Q4?
Yeah, that was something that believe a year ago when we saw the issues with sales costs, administrative costs, and other costs. We said that this certainly draws our attention. Yeah, this is therefore done, and among other things, I believe I might be mistaken, but I believe this is one of the places where we have write-offs of other assets. So since like I said, I believe everything that's doubtful has already been written off, and that happened a while ago. So this also contributed to better looking other expenses than we had last year. Eva?
Thank you. Do you know what is the status of the settlements and liabilities of the heirs ahead of the widow?
Well, this is a very private question, I think. It's basically the financial relations between two individuals, of whom I'm none. Um, I know for the council member of ours, Irina Maligina, she's putting a lot of effort to have her part settled. I don't know the latest. Might be settled already, but I know absolutely nothing about all the others. Yeah.
Thank you, Salvi. How far are you with the potential acquisition of the company in Germany?
We have done some let's say first stages of financial DD, and these stages really confirmed our interest. So we are now in the process of arranging next meeting. Not sure if this will happen before the end of the year, but well, I hope it does. And yeah, then we continue from there. Of course, like in normal DD, you have questions about this and that, and if those questions are answered, and the answers are the ones that we can live with, then of course we go ahead. So it's the first stage of preliminary financial DD have completed, and no deal breakers are found so far. Yeah.
Thank you. Statistic data of state drug agencies show that sales in Latvia, particularly Olainfarm itself, has really small growth, practically less than total market growth. Your presentation shows pretty good growth. How you explain the difference, Salvi?
Well, yeah, very simple. We have the presentation that I give is the presentation of the group, and that would include pharmacies, that would include whatever Silvanos is selling in Latvia, that would include whatever Tonus Ellis is selling in Latvia. That would also include all the healthcare services that are provided in Latvia. As far as products are concerned, it's quite seasonal. I mean, even the let's say the majority of our products sold in Latvia, we are seeing some growth, and obviously for some smaller products, we believe the growth might not be as big, or in some periods of time might even be a decline. So of course we're following that data, but the difference between what the state agency publishes and what we publish is that we are talking about the group, and they in their case are covering certain products by one producer, which is Olainfarm, which is biggest part of a group, but it's still just a part of a group, not the entire group. Yeah.
Thank you, Salvi. What is the potential timeline of the Danish acquisition?
Well, we have a first meeting scheduled for this month, and upon that and signing all the NDAs and whatever might be necessary, we would start the preliminary DDs, and move from there. But again, like I said, that meeting is scheduled for this year, while the German meeting is still being agreed upon. Yeah.
Thank you, Salvi. At this moment, all questions are answered. You've been participating in quite a few investors' events recently, but still very many interesting questions. So
Yeah,
thank you,
yeah.
participants.
That's what we're trying to be. We're trying to be open. And oh, yeah, I see. Something came in, right?
Exactly. Could you please elaborate a bit more? What is Danish acquisition?
That's another pharma company that has a veterinary arm to it. And you may have heard that we also identified veterinary medicine as one of the areas where we would like to develop. So there's a Danish company that is also identified as a potential target. Been some first exchanges of interest. And like I said, we are having a first meeting this month. And if no deal breakers are identified during that meeting, then we might proceed. Yeah, that's basically what I can say about that so far. Yeah.
Thank you, Salvi. Seemingly, we have managed to answer all questions asked by investors. So, as always, the recording of the webinar will be available on our Nasdaq Baltic YouTube channel and also in Olainfarm's announcements later today or tomorrow early. Salvi, thank you. Thank you for the webinar. Participants, thank you for joining. Thank you for the interesting questions asked today. We hope to see you next time.
Thank you very much for joining. And yeah, well, next communication from us is in slightly more than a week's time, and we'll be coming up with the November sales and 11-month sales. So yeah, let's wait for that. And
Looking
thank you.
forward. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.